Welcome to Chisel and Compass, where deep-rooted wisdom meets the crossroads of faith, entrepreneurship, and mindset. I'm the real Jason Duncan, and he's Dr. Justin Moseley, the Mindset Doctor. And we're here to help you refine your vision and navigate life's toughest challenges with purpose-driven strategies and real-world insights. Each episode, we're going to dive into faith-driven leadership, business growth, personal development, and the mindset shifts that drive lasting success. Now, whether you're building your business, enhancing your leadership skills, or pursuing personal growth, this podcast equips you with the tools and perspectives you need to lead with conviction and live with impact. This isn't just about where you're going, it's how you get there. So let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Chisel and Compass. Welcome back to Chisel and Compass. I am one of your hosts, the real Jason Duncan, and
the Mindset Doctor, Dr. Justin Moseley.
And we're here today at Smokers Abbey in Gallatin, Tennessee. They're letting us shoot our episode here today. If you watched or heard the last episode, we're in the same position, smoking the same cigars we were last time. We're just continuing the conversation. But in this show, we're going to be talking about fighting giants. Fighting giants. And what does that mean to fight giants? And you and I, Justin, had a conversation. We get together frequently and have coffee and talk about life and business and whatever. And we were talking this morning about, well, you had an interesting thing about David and Goliath. Why don't you open it up?
Yeah, and I don't remember how we got on the conversation of just the things the things we face in life, the hardships. We were talking about that. And I was telling you the interesting perspective that I heard, because a lot of times we refer to the story of David. David conquers Goliath. And you had all the other Israelites were afraid of Goliath. They didn't want to go against him. And then all of a sudden you got David, this kid that's not even supposed to be there. He's supposed to be watching over the herd. But he comes and he's like, hey, I can fight him. And he couldn't even wear the armor. He wasn't strong enough to hold the armor. But he goes out and he faces Goliath. So, as believers, most of the time we translate that story into, we are like David. We can conquer Goliath. All the troubles that come on, there are Goliaths, and we can fight those battles and we can win. But an interesting perspective I heard recently is, no, we're not David. We weren't supposed to be David. Jesus is David. Jesus is the one that came. He's the one that conquered Goliath for us. So it's not us that's supposed to be fighting these battles. In fact, we can't fight these battles alone. It's God that's fighting the battles on our behalf. But a lot of times we try to fight our own battles. And we'll pray about it and we want God to intervene, but then we want to be the ones to go out and face it head on. But really, it's like, no, Jesus came and he's the one that's going to fight our battles. The hard part is, can we let go? Can we trust in the fact that he's got us versus us trying to be like, okay, I prayed about it. I believe that he's there, but I want to be the one to conquer this thing. So that's where I kind of want to dive in with you. What are your thoughts on that of, you know what? Because you got all the other, we're more like the Israelites that were there. It's like, man, there is a Goliath here. But can we trust that Jesus, in this case, he can conquer this giant for me? I don't have to be the one to go out there and fight it.
Yeah, so this show, Chisel and Compass, is dedicated to this idea of this intersection between faith, business, and mindset. So faith, because we're both followers of Jesus, and this show is going to have a through theme about Jesus, and we're always going to talk about that. But business, because we're business owners, we're entrepreneurs, and then mindset, because we're really interested in the mindset. And today is really about a mindset and how it intersects with faith. And like, is our mindset lining up with what we say we believe?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're talking about, this idea of where mindset and our faith line up, is if in fact we are not David in these battle situations with Goliath, and that's not a perspective I've thought of before, but I think it makes sense, is that David was a shepherd, and he fought bears and lions, and he fought them off with his own two hands, and he fought Goliath and won, and your friend, whoever told you that, said, well, in that situation, Jesus, that's Jesus for us. We don't have to go fight the battle. Jesus is doing it. Well, every single day, on the app, and this is a plug. I don't get paid for this, but PrayerMate app. These guys, I think it's discipleship technology out of the UK. They're fantastic, and if you guys ever listen, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I email them every once in a while. I just think they're doing great. But this app, you can put in prayer, things you want to pray for, and it reminds you every day to pray for these things. You can subscribe to feeds, and then you can add your own stuff. Well, I added one that's just called Deliverance. So it's one of my prayer cards, it's Deliverance. And this is what's on it. And I read this every morning. It's the first thing that pops up every morning. This is from Psalm 32. You are a hiding place for me. You preserve me from trouble. You surround me with shouts of deliverance. Now, that doesn't say anything about going out and fighting it. It's like he surrounded me. Yeah. And then it continues, I will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. I will counsel you with my eye upon you. So in Psalm 32, God's very clearly saying, through David, by the way, the David we're talking about, who wrote that, is that God is going before us. He's the one that's delivering us. That doesn't mean we sit on our rear end and wait. Yeah. Although sometimes that might be the case. But we don't have to take on the pressure of fighting those giants on our own. He's going to go and fight those for us. Yeah. And that leads me to what I really would like to dive into, and this is where Psalm 23 comes in. Yep. So that was Psalm 32. So just invert those numbers. You can remember where I got these, Psalm 32 and Psalm 23. So Psalm 23 we mostly hear at funerals. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, blah, blah, blah. But in there he says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, meaning bad stuff's happening. Yep. I've walked through a valley of shadow of death in the last 12 months. Yep. Terrible. And you know, people closest to me know how terrible it was. It was pretty bad. But in there he says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I don't fear anything. And again, this is David writing this. And David says, I don't fear anything, for you're with me. So there's a nugget there, right? Yep. Why are we afraid if the King of the universe is walking through with us? Yeah. Like that's insane. Right. So if I hop in the ring with Mike Tyson, and I'm trying, but then Jesus is there to fight my battle. Am I afraid of Mike Tyson? No. Or maybe Mike Tyson's on my side and I'm fighting some other dude. I'm not worried about it. He's going to take care of it. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Yep. But here's where it comes in, and this is what I find very interesting, is he said, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Yeah. So there's two different implements. The rod is what a shepherd would use to fight an enemy, a wolf, a bear, an attacker of any kind. Maybe it's another human. Maybe it's somebody's trying to steal the sheep. The sheep could sit totally and comfortably in the fact of knowing that rod is there and the shepherd knows how to use it to beat away any attacker. And then the staff is the one with the crook on it, the hook on it, that they could, if a sheep wandered too far, it could pull them back. So it's this beautiful vision, image that David writes about. It's like when you're going through the valley of the shadow of death, your shepherd is there to fight off the attackers, whether it's creditors, whether it's enemies, whether it's somebody saying slanderous things about you, whether it's money or whatever it happens to be. He's going to fight for you. That's what he's going to do. And then when you wander too far away, he has that crook, that staff to pull you back. And I think I also read Psalm 23 every single day. I meditate on it because that probably more than any scripture helped me go through my hell that I went through this past year.
Well, and that brings me back to, even in this story, Jesus is the shepherd, because then Jesus talked a lot about the sheep and how to leave the 99 to find the one. And when you're talking about the sheep can just sit there comfortably, I think of we're the sheep because Jesus has God's rod and staff protecting us with everything. The wolves are attacking, all the things are happening, but we can sit there in peace knowing Jesus has got us.
Yeah. So this idea of fighting giants, we don't have to fight the giants. Giants are going to come out and pick on us. They're going to come pick on us. They're going to come pick fights. It could be a tax problem. It could be a financial problem. It could be a relationship problem. It could be an addiction problem. It could be a personnel problem if you got employees. It could be any number. It could be a physical problem like your car's broke down. All those things, God says, I will go before you. I will deliver you. Now that doesn't mean that it's always going to work out the way you think it should, because let me tell you something, brother. If I could have written the script over the last 12 months, none of that crap would have happened. Right. I would not have gone through that. I would have said, nope, we're not going to do this. Nah, we're not going to do that. Nah, we're not going to do this. And in the end, I would have looked like a hero. Right. But now, guess who's the hero? Jesus is the hero. Yeah. He brought me through that mess. Yep.
And you got a whole different perspective now too because it's where the hard part is, okay, how can I sit still and be the sheep? Yes, I know Jesus is there, I know he's got me, but I still need to do this and this and this. Like I feel, that's the mindset part of, I feel like I can still see the giant. That's where the faith piece, do I really believe he's got me? or am I still living in fear? And that's what we kind of talked about this morning too, is sometimes we go through this stuff knowing and truly believe in faith, but the fear is still there too. We got the faith and the fear kind of battling each other. The hard part is, can we really let the fear go and truly live into the faith? How do you do that when you're going through something tough?
Well, one of the things I've learned over the past year or two is that faith and fear are opposite sides of the same emotion. So fear and faith are the same emotion, just in different directions.
Yeah.
When you're fearful, you have faith that something bad is going to happen or continue to happen, and the outcome is going to be terrible. When you have faith that something good is going to happen, that your best interest is at heart. And it's a continuum. So I believe that Father laughs as a good grandfather could laugh at a child doing something silly.
Yeah.
But I think he looks at us and he sees us going back and forth on this continuum where we're scared to death. And he's like, man, you have faith in the wrong thing, man. You don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. Yet you're living in the fear. And you know what? It might even happen, but you're still okay. Like, you're still okay. Go back the other side of the continuum and you have total faith in the same situation. So if you're in a bad situation, you have a choice. The energy you're going to expend is going to be the same either way. You're either going to have fear, that's an energy, that's an emotion, or you have faith, that's an energy, that's an emotion. It's the same thing. What do you think about that?
No, that's a great perspective, because yeah, it is. You're believing one way or the other. I believe it's going to be good, or I believe it's going to be bad. So yeah, then we just name it faith and fear, but really we have the faith in one of those outcomes. So yeah, I really like that perspective. And the hard part is, and I think it goes back to the saying, whether you believe you can or you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. The same thing with this. If you believe in something good or believe in something bad, you're right as far as what that does in your body. When you're fearful that something's going wrong, you can't sleep, your digestion gets messed up. All these things physiologically happen to you when you're living in fear. Whereas when you're living in faith, you have peace. You can sleep at night, all the things can happen. And one thing I really like that you said is sometimes the stuff does happen, but it's okay. We make it bigger in our own minds. It goes back to the Mark Twain quote. I lived a life of many troubles. Most of them never happened. Because in our mind, we make how bad things are going to be if it goes this way. When a lot of times it went that way a little bit, and that happened to actually get us to the next place we're supposed to go anyways. We just made the fear so bad in our own mind, it scared us.
Fear is contraction, faith is expansion. So if you think about your body physiologically, and you're a doctor, so you kind of know this. So your body, when you're fearful, like truly fearful, your digestion slows down, all the blood goes to the critical elements, critical organs in your body, and your extremities are left to fend for themselves because it wants to protect the core. It's contraction. That's what fear does. Everything shuts down. You can't operate. You can't think. That's why when you're scared, you get dumber by the second. You can't think. But when you're in faith, doesn't it stand to reason that the opposite would be true? That everything, when you're in faith, operating in faith, when you're fighting the giant, so to speak, if you're operating in faith rather than fear, everything works in perfection, exactly as it's supposed to work.
That's right. Yeah, and it goes back to that fight or flight response. So when we get in fear, fight or flight kicks in. Our pupils dilate because we need to be able to see where we're going. Our muscles go to our extremities, so we're ready to fight. Well, if our muscles go into extremities, it's going away from our blood's going into our muscles. It's going away from our digestive organs. So your digestion actually slows down. Your reproductive organs slow down. You don't need to be having sex if you're running from a lion. You're in fight or flight. So all these things happen to us versus when you're in the peace. So fight or flight, the opposite of that, they call it feed and breed. You're either able to feed, you're able to have sex, you're able to enjoy life because you're not in this fear state. So I think a lot of life day to day goes back to state management. Can we live in a state of peace and relaxation versus a state of fear? Your life is going to be completely different depending on what state you're living in.
I also think that Solomon, who was David's son, he wrote this in Proverbs chapter 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding.
Yep.
Now, there's more to it. I want to stop there for just a second. Our understanding of the situation is almost never correct.
That's right, yeah.
Worry You were talking about worry.
Yeah.
I've lived a life of troubles, most of which never happened. Well, there was a worry study done years ago. I think it was probably in the 70s. I don't remember the exact, don't quote me on this, but it found that 80, there was eight, I forget what number, it was 80 something percent of the things that people worried about never happened. Then, of the things that did happen, I think it was 80% of those things actually turned out for the benefit of the person. They either learned a lesson or it wasn't as bad as they thought. So if you do the math, 97% of the things that you worry about are either not going to happen or is okay.
Right.
So only 3%. So why would you spend all that energy on a 3% chance of something bad happening? It's not going to happen.
Right.
3% chances is nothing.
Yeah, because we can go down the whole rabbit hole of what that does to your body and how sick that makes you by living in that state of fear when it's not going to happen anyways. But what fear does to your body on a cellular level, it causes sickness, disease, cancer, a lot of things within your own body living in those states. That's where they've done studies with cancer patients that actually start to practice forgiveness, and they start to forgive people that they've held grudges over for years. They start to actually heal at a cellular level. But it's because they've been holding on to grudges for so long, it actually affected their cells. Like, that's how powerful fear is in a negative way on our bodies.
Florence Shen, who's one of my favorite writers, we've talked about her before. She wrote The Game of Life and How to Play It, and Your Word is Your Wand. She only wrote 4 or 5 books, and these were published back in the 20s. And she even talks about it in her books about what was cutting edge medical understanding at the time, even though it wasn't certified, is that certain emotions caused certain things in the body, caused certain ailments, like unforgiveness caused, it wasn't unforgiveness, it was being critical, like someone with a cynical attitude causes rheumatism.
Right.
And you read that in the 20s, 30s, heck, you read that in the 80s, and people go, who's this quack?
Right.
Well, now they're finding out this stuff happens.
Yeah.
If you're a cynical person, it's more likely you're going to have rheumatism. If you worry a lot, there's more likely you're going to have things in your blood that are going to cause. This is all physiological. If doing good things and thinking good thoughts can lead to positive things and bad things lead to bad things, I mean, why would you choose the bad? This is why I think when Solomon wrote this, he was probably the number one metaphysician besides Jesus ever when he said, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In other words, your mind is your perception is going to lie to you. What you understand about the situation, you haven't seen the end of the movie. God's seen the end of the movie. He knows it ends okay. He knows what's going to happen. And then it goes on to say, and the peace of God will that passes understanding, that you can't even wrap your brain around, will guard your heart.
Yeah.
Like, that is cool.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the analogies we were sharing earlier, that Jesus has got us. God's rod and his staff, they comfort us because you trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. He will make your path straight. Who? Not me. Not I got to figure out the path. He's going to make the path straight.
Yeah.
So
I was mixing that with Philippians, where Paul wrote about the peace that passes understanding. So forgive me for getting those, mixing those. I read this, and then I go straight to Philippians 2, and I read that every day. And where Paul writes about that, think on these good things.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's the next card here. So it's not the very next one, but let's see if I can find the one that it shows up, where it's Philippians 2, 4 through 6. Why can't I find it? There it is. Well, shoot, I can't find it. Almer, I want you to cut this out. We're going to edit. Make sure you edit this out, so I don't want to look like an idiot. It's right here in my thing. I read it every day.
No, I just read it.
Now it's not popping up. I just read it this morning. Why is it not in here? Okay. All right, Almer. I hope you're listening to this. Don't you let this go out there. Better make sure you get this right. Got to find out. Biblical prayers, Philippians 4. All right, so I got to say this again. All right, so we're going to pick up right here, Almer. Justin, please make a note to tell Almer that we screwed this up because I don't want this going out. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I read this also in my prayer list every day. It's Philippians 4. I said Philippians 2. Philippians 4, 4 through 8. He says, whatever is true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellence. If there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think or meditate on these things. In other words, set your mind on these things. And then right before he said that, it was the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. That's what I was talking about.
Right.
But right
So
before that, he said, don't worry about anything. I mean,
right.
it all comes together. It's
Yeah.
it's this great idea of mindset.
Yep.
We think we're fighting battles. We think we're fighting giants, and we're just a bystander in this whole thing. God's got us. He's gonna take care of us.
And I think that's a good example. Is the opposite of worry is focusing on those things. So don't just not worry. Focus your mind on all the good things. And we've talked about gratitude before too. That's what gratitude does. When you can't be in a state of gratitude and a state of fear at the same time. When you start truly feeling grateful for all the things in your life, it changes you. Well, that's the same thing that happens as Paul wrote about. When you start thinking about all those things, you're no longer worried about what might happen over here, because you can start to meditate on all those things and realize I can have peace in that moment because God's got me in this.
Yeah, do not be anxious about anything, but by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, gratitude.
Yeah.
Present your request to God. Let him know, hey, I want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. And when you do that and present it with gratitude and say, God, I'm grateful for all that you've been able to guide me through. And listen, I went through hell. I'm not grateful that I had to go through it, but I'm grateful that he brought me through it.
Right.
And I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned on the backside of it, because he is the shepherd. His rod and his staff is comforting me, and these battles aren't mine to fight. Now, let's put this, as we kind of wrap up today's show, let's put this into context around business. So a lot of people listen to this are business owners, entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of fear in entrepreneurship. There's a lot of fear in running businesses and hiring and firing employees and vendor problems and customer problems. How do we put this into practice, this fighting giants? How do we put this in practice as a business owner?
Well, I think first off is, are you spending time with the Lord? Are you reading things like this? Are you putting in your mind all the good things that Paul talked about? Are you focusing there versus are you going to sleep worried about the problems you've got to tackle tomorrow? You're waking up and maybe you do have some prayer time, but you're still in fear. Okay, I checked that off the list because I got to go handle this. Or are you truly trying to get yourself in a place of peace, knowing that God's got you? And really, and I think that's where you deepened this practice, right, for yourself as you were going through hard times. Like that practice got even stronger for you.
Oh man, yeah. Well, that's where I started meditating on Philippians 4. Started meditating on Psalm 23, started meditating on Psalm 32. These are things that helped give me guidance through that. And you know, you think about going back to Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, all right, the one who carries the rod and the staff, the one who takes care of things. And what does he do? Well, he makes me lie down in green pastures. Well, what do sheep eat? They eat green pastures. So we're lying in the middle of abundance.
Yeah.
Even though the crap's going on around us, he's our shepherd. He's put us in a place, and he leads us beside still waters. Why? Because we're afraid of rushing waters. Yeah. Sheep are afraid. They won't drink from a rushing stream, but they will drink from still water. So he's leading us to the places where we can get sustenance. And then it says he restores my soul. Yeah. In other words, he keeps us alive. Even in the midst of all this stuff, he's taking care of us. And then it says he guides me on the right path for the sake of his name. Ooh, that's a big one, because as entrepreneurs, we're trying to build our own name, trying to build our own brands, build our own kingdoms. And there's nothing wrong with having a personal brand, right? But you got to make it secondary to the brand of Jesus. Like it's the brand of, if you're following him, like it's really about him. Yeah. And this Psalm 23, when you meditate on that deeply, as I did, I only was driven to do those meditations in the worst time in my life. I had a life coach in 2019 when I was going through another hard time with another business situation. And he was the first person to say, I want you to read Psalm 23 every day. And I was like, the funeral psalm? Why would I read that every day? That sounds morbid. Right. Because no, every day, read it every day. And it helped, but I didn't have the full grasp of it. Right. Until I went through this new hell, this new valley of the shadow of death. Oh, yeah, it was terrible. Well,
and I think it starts there. Are you truly getting yourself there? You guarding your mind, putting the right stuff in, and then a mindset shift is a lot of the problems you worry about today won't even matter 5 years from now. A lot of them won't even matter 5 months from now. So a lot of the worries, just know that, hey, if you're guarding your heart and mind and you're focusing on God and putting him first, you're going to make some wrong missteps. You might make a bad hire and you have to fire somebody. Those things may come and go, but there's no reason to worry about it, because at the end, we win. God's got us. We're going to be on the right path that he's called us for. So we're going to have to make tough decisions. We're going to have to let people go in life. New people are going to come. Like, things are going to happen. So don't worry on the day to day, because there's stuff that I worried about last year that, like, why was I even worried about that? Like, that didn't even affect me. So reminding ourselves is, man, God's got us. If we remind ourselves that, I don't have to worry day to day. I can mentally go back to that picture of just being in the flock. And Jesus is there. He's got a rod and a staff. He can pull me back over here. He can beat off the giants. He's got me. That's going to give me peace day to day.
I don't remember exactly the reference where it came from, but there was somebody Jesus was talking to, and he said, the guy responded, he said, "I believe, but help me in my unbelief."
Yes, help me in my unbelief.
I have faith, but help me in my lack of faith.
Yep.
And Jesus commended him. He said, "Hey, you understand where you're at." And I think we just need to be honest.
Yeah.
We're going to go through crappy times. I was not a model of a perfect, faithful person in the middle of my hell. I mean, there was moments I'm lying face down on the floor in my office, broke.
Yeah.
Well, broke. I didn't mean that
Broken.
financially. Although that was there. I was broken,
Yeah.
and on the way to broke. If I didn't watch it, I got closest to broke I've been in a long time into the process. But I'm laying in. I remember the day it happened. It's like I'm laying. I'd gotten up from the desk. I'd had a terrible phone call, and the phone call, Justin, was a phone call that I thought was going to solve all the problems.
Ooh.
It was that hope that I had. This is going to fix it. If I just if this dude says what I want him to say, everything's done.
Yep.
And it was the worst outcome that could have happened. It wasn't even just a no. It was like a hell no. It was bad, and it was an accusation. There were things thrown back at me. I was reeling, and I got up from the desk after the phone call, and I just went and I laid face down on the floor. I wasn't crying because I'm not much of an emotive person, but I was as close to it as I could be. I did have plenty of time crying, but not that day. I was just broken, and I was laying face on the floor. I had no thoughts in my head. I couldn't function. And I laid there, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes. I just couldn't move. And my wife got home, and I heard her come home, and as normal, I heard her footsteps walking through the hall to come check in, say hello. And she opens the door, and I'm face down on the floor, not moving. She's a little freaked out by that. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not okay."
Yeah.
So I know that in the middle of that, I was not demonstrating what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
But I went through that, and now I can stand back and go, okay, I had to go through that, so I now understand I can help other people not have to go through that.
Yeah, and so the cool thing looking at it, because I was there, I got to see from outside looking in the situation, being there for you, and you were a believer through the whole time. You were a believer before, you were a believer as you went through it. My question for you is, and I like what you said earlier, like being honest with where you are. Like the guy is like, help me in my unbelief. So you realize, okay, I've got faith, but I've also got fear going on here. But through it all, did it deepen your relationship with Father going through that? Oh, yeah. Part one of the question. And then secondly, did it bring you to a place where you realized, I keep trying to fight these giants? And did you get to a point of like, I can't do this. I need you?
For sure. Yes, on both accounts. I think that the deepening of that relationship and faith and my mindset and understanding who's in charge and who's protection, who's supposed to be leading and making decisions. It also pointed out and shined the magnifying glass and light on the mistakes that I had made as a leader. And there was a lot of that was my fault.
Yeah.
It ultimately was my fault, but the details that led to the outcome, that wasn't me.
Right.
But I recognized that. And it was almost like God saying, hey, like, see, you screwed up, man.
Yeah.
But I still got you. Like, I'm still here. Just like a father with his son, even if his son screws up, the father's not going to abandon his son. He's like, I still love you. You're still my kid. Yeah, you screwed up. That was dumb. You shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But I'm with you, and I'm not going to let you go down. I'm not going to let you go down. I'm going to be here and I'm going to protect you. So, yes, the relationship got much deeper, stronger. And then you asked about, what was the second part of the question? It was...
Yeah, so where you were still trying, you were praying, you had the faith, but you were still trying to conquer the giant.
Did I release? Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that is, I'm much more chill in that. It's like, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm still going to work hard. I'm still going to work hard towards what I believe to be the right outcome. Yeah. But I'm not gonna put all my stock in the fact that I have to make it happen.
Right.
Because it's not me swinging the sling. It's not me trying to fight that giant. It's it's God. God's got it. Now,
Yeah.
if He tells me, "Hey, I need you to pick up this sling and sling that rock over there," I'm going to do it because that's
Right.
what He said to do.
Yeah.
I think just like a shepherd leading the shepherd is going to hurry the sheep at times. Say, "Hey, we got to hurry. We got to get out of the way." The sheep's not going to go, you got this. It's fine. No, the
Right.
shepherd is telling you, you better run, dude. There's
Yeah.
danger coming. You better get out of the way.
Yeah.
So there's this fine line, I think, between people who believe that God is orchestrating every single detail, which I don't believe, and this other side of the thing that's like, I don't have to do nothing.
Right.
Like, I
And I think that's important, going back to the verse you shared earlier of He will make your path straight. He will tell you what path to take, but you still got to take the path. You
That's
can't
right.
just sit here on the path in the middle of it and like, I think I'm going to get over there. Like, no, you still have to go in the direction He calls you to go. But that's where the wisdom comes in of you seeking Him through the situation, seeing, okay, His guidance to provide a way, which He did, but then you taking the path of, okay, here's the path He's provided, I'm going to take it.
This is good, man. This is a good conversation. This went deeper than I anticipated. This is great.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Any final comments or thoughts on fighting giants?
I think it just goes back to the reminder of we aren't called to fight the giants. The giants are going to come. And I think the analogy you shared earlier was perfect. I see the sheep all sitting there in the field. The wolves are coming to attack. It's not the sheep's job to fight the wolf. It's not our job to fight the wolf, the Goliath, whatever's coming at us. Jesus has it. Can we have faith in that? Can we live in the peace that He's got us? I think that's the reminder.
That's great. Well, thanks for listening to the show today. We hope that you enjoyed this type of stuff. If you have thoughts or comments on this, look at the description below. There's going to be ways to get in touch with both Dr. Justin Moseley and me. You can get in touch with me, the real Jason Duncan. Just reach out if you got thoughts, comments. If you don't like it, whatever, leave comments on the YouTube. Let us know what you're thinking. But please subscribe, rate this show. We want to keep doing more shows like this. Thanks for listening. I'm the real Jason Duncan.
Dr. Justin Moseley.
We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on Chisel and Compass for today. For show notes, resources, and more, hit up chiselandcompass.com and follow us on social media. You can find me at The Real Jason Duncan, and you can find Justin at Dr. Justin Moseley. Until next time, keep your chisel sharp, your compass true, and never stop building what matters. This is Chisel and Compass.